Good evening. Thank you for attending. My name is Natalie Sayre, and I will be this evening's moderator. Before we begin, please silence all phones and electronic devices. Additionally, please refrain from any interruptions to the debate, as it is being recorded for on-demand viewing and post-captioning services. The Citizens Clean Elections Commission is the sponsor for this evening's event. The Clean Elections Act is a campaign finance reform and public education measure initiated by Arizona citizens and passed by voters in 1998. The Clean Elections Act was created to allow campaigns to be more issue-oriented and less negative. The system provides full funding for qualified candidates who participate voluntarily. The candidates agree to abide by the Clean Elections Act and rules, which include contribution and spending limits, foregoing special interest money, as well as participating in commission debates. The candidates invited to participate tonight are in contested general elections. Candidates in uncontested general elections are not included in the debate process. For tonight's debate, questions have been prepared by Clean Elections based on a voter survey, as well as questions that have been submitted by voters through the Clean Elections smartphone app. However, we encourage live audience questions first. If you have questions, please print them clearly on the note cards given to you when you entered and hold them up. Our volunteers will pick up the note cards and deliver them to me. If you need additional cards, just raise your hand. We screen questions for clarity, to eliminate duplications, speeches, or personal attacks on candidates. The debate is scheduled for 30 minutes, so we may not get to all audience questions, but we will do our best. There is an independent timer who will see that the candidate has her allotted time to answer the questions and will tell her when the time is up. Tonight's debate includes 1 minute opening statement, a quick lightning round, 2 minutes for audience questions, and 1 minute for closing statement. We ask that you remain polite to our candidate and give her a fair and uninterrupted hearing, no matter how strongly you may agree or disagree with what is being said. Tonight's participant is Ms. Deanna Rasmussen-Lacotta, a Democrat running for the State House for District Number 21. Ms. Rasmussen-Lacotta, will you start your opening remarks, please?
Hello. I have to say I'm so grateful to Arizona Clean Elections because without it, I could never have run a political campaign for the House of Representatives. I live in Sun City with my husband of 3 years. I've been many places and done many things in my life, but preparing for this election has been one of the most challenging things I've done. All my other experiences have led me to this job of representing the people of this district. My background in nuclear biomedical chemistry has given me the discipline to drill down into economics of the budget and to show you what I have discovered and what the trends are. The Republicans have blocked public schools in 2 ways. They keep bills that Democrats have offered out from under the, they don't bring it to the floor to vote. The other way that they block funding for public schools.
Thank you.
Okay.
So we are going to start with a quick lightning round. Please answer with 1 word.
Okay.
Pandora or Spotify?
Neither.
Okay. Starbucks or Dunkin'?
Starbucks.
CNN, Fox News, or MSNBC?
Well, I don't really watch cable news, but I would say CNN.
Okay. And finally, Lumberjack, Sun Devil, or Wildcat?
Sun Devils.
Okay. At this time, we'll begin the question portion of our event. Your first question is, DES, according to DES, 20,000 people in LD21 live in poverty. What should the role of government be in help lifting these families out of poverty?
Well, there is a great food insecurity in our district. 1 in 5 adults, 1 in 4 children, and 1 in 7 seniors have food insecurity. I actually have worked at the food bank. I go to the food bank to get food, but I've worked in the back office, and I see the people who are coming there, the grandparents who are taking care of children that need food. Now, I noticed Kevin Payne, who's my opponent, is not here for one thing, but he answered a survey of the Association of Arizona Food Banks. And what he said is it was a #1 priority for him, food insecurity. Yet he voted to keep the finger imaging program that cost taxpayers $2 million to operate. Other states have dropped it because they've only found 7 questionable cases. In this survey, I thought school lunch programs should be better quality food and more money spent on the program, whereas Mr. Payne felt that too many students received reduced priced meals and too much was spent on the lunch program. He does not realize that kids may be having the only nutritious meal of the day. Mr. Payne believes churches, food banks, and private businesses should take care of the poor people's needs. I believe the state and federal government have an obligation to provide food. Do you know that emergency rooms are seeing kids who are ending up with constipation, and that's because the food they're served in schools have too many preservatives? Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. An audience member is worried about the climate change in Arizona. So if elected, what action do you propose to address climate change?
That's a very important issue to me. Well, smart grid technology will help prevent brownouts by redistributing power during peak hours. Solar farms are good for collecting energy at the end of the day, but we're still reliant on coal, natural gas, and nuclear to keep the grid active. Now, the Navajo coal plant is the 3rd largest producer of greenhouse gases in the nations, leading to global warming. This coal plant could be retooled to produce clean coal plants. Now, this would create a lot of jobs for the people who are used to working at that plant. But it is possible to burn coal, but to do it cleanly. Also, individual solar panels on homes should be encouraged. With the advent of new battery technology, the homes could be self-sufficient. Listen, in the state of Massachusetts, they have more solar units than we do in Arizona. I have more concern about the water, though. The Groundwater Act of 1980 protected most of the state from overdrawing on the capacity of the underground aquifer to sustain itself. But in La Paz County, alfalfa is being grown by a Saudi Arabian company, and it's drawing off the groundwater to the detriment of the local residents whose wells are going dry. You can see the National Geographic issue 2016, August 2016, will tell you the story how the aquifers of the world are being used up. Saudi Arabia has stopped growing crops because it has run out of groundwater. So we must protect the water for the whole state.
Thank you. Next question. Would you vote for SB 1516, which repeals some certain campaign finance reforms, and why?
We have carried out a campaign. I have gone door to door to put a proposition on the ballot to rescind 1516. That was passed in March by the legislature. And what they did, it now allows 501c3 organizations, nonprofits, to finance a candidate without disclosing how much they gave that candidate and who gave the money to the candidate. Now, this is just wrong to me. That's called dark money. And I had an experience going door to door where an electrician told me that he was fired from a job because his employer said, here, sign this check. You're going to give so much money to this candidate, $2,000 to a candidate. And he refused. He was a Democrat. He refused, and he was laid off at the end of the week. So there's something rotten in Denmark here. And I am Danish, so I can say that. Thank you. That's all I have to say. I would not vote for it. I would repeal it.
All right. Thank you. Next question. What will you do to attract manufacturing jobs to the West Valley?
Well, science and technology is what will be important for the education of children, because there's a whole program out there of space industries that a lot of people know that are happening in Arizona, and we need the kids to know their STEM courses. And so again, I go back to education. That's important for bringing in jobs. You don't have companies who will come here if they don't have an educated populace to do the jobs. So education, education, education. I know the banks are behind that, so that's what I would say.
Okay, thank you. How are you better qualified than your opponent to represent LD21?
Well, I've just seen a couple of things. I already mentioned Kevin Payne's point of view on food scarcity, that he sees it as a primary policy, but when it comes down to it, he wants to make it harder for people to get food stamps. If people have felonies, he doesn't want to allow them to get food. And there are ways to get around those programs. I'm surprised that Mr. Tony Rivero has a degree in education, because in his way, he has only voted 50% of the time for any education bills that were put before the floor. So I don't know what his interest is in supporting the people of LD21 when he won't support education.
Okay. Next question. How will you keep organized crime from making inroads into the marijuana business should Proposition 205 pass?
Could you repeat that question?
Certainly. How will you keep organized crime from making inroads to the marijuana business should Proposition 205 pass?
But that's why Proposition 205 is being put forward. It's making it legal for companies to sell the product. Now, the product is being sold with the black market right now. So having organization of where people can get marijuana will discourage the black market of drugs and marijuana. So I'm in support of the marijuana proposition.
How will you continue to protect our firearms and freedom to exercise the Second Amendment in our state?
Well, I don't really have an interest in protecting the firearms. I think that we need to have less firearms. We're having more people killed all the time. And I'm in opposition to weapons that can shoot hordes of people at one time. So that's where I stand.
Okay. Explain your education philosophy, and will Proposition 123 help or hinder?
Proposition 123 barely scraped the surface and more or less covered the inflationary cost of education. Are you just asking in general about the education, funding education?
So the audience member would like to know your education philosophy and how you would address that as a legislator.
Oh, a good example is Dysart District. They have a wonderful program of critical thinking and labs where kids can come and work on certain projects. The things I've learned that the superintendent of Dysart schools have done have very much impressed me. So I would use that as a model. Also on my website, Deanna for LD21, I have a whole essay on how schools could be improved by looking at countries that have had successful education programs and the things they've done. Number one is to respect teachers and to pay them more. Teachers are leaving this state. They're not being supported economically. They make, I think, 70% of what the national fee is. And a lot of them are retiring. So that's what I believe is more mentoring of teachers. And, well, there's more things. Let me see if I can get my finger on. I don't believe in the programs that allow public funding to go for private schools. That's definitely something I don't support.
Have you concluded?
Yeah, that's it.
All right, thank you.
I had a lot more to say, but.
Specifically, how do you differ in issues with Tony Rivero? How are you different specifically?
Well, the education is so important to me. I remind you, and then again, he's not here to defend himself, so it's hard to say, but he has not been supporting the bills that have been put forward in the legislature. Now, in the survey of ESA, which is the Every Student Succeeds Act, which are looking at new student standards being developed, 80% of the respondents want an increase in school funding. Arizona is the last of all the states in per pupil funding or spending. So think about a prisoner. They spend 5 times more on a prisoner than they do on a pupil. Mr. Payne says, now he's also running, that Arizona has 3 of the top 10 schools in the nation, so it's not entirely a money issue. He doesn't mention that these blue ribbon schools are magnet schools that only accept students for AP classes, now which are advanced placement classes. They have only 10 students in a class. I don't think he knows that AP classes are for A and B students. They have to be accepted at these magnet schools. So that's why I think I know a lot more about education than Mr. Payne or Mr. Rivero.
Okay, thank you. Next question. If you were to be elected, what would be the first bill you would submit, and what would you consider your most important issue to address?
Well, that's so interesting because I was trying to explain at the very beginning. The bill I would try to put in is to cap the amount of money that families can deduct. If they make $100,000, they can't deduct $400 because they gave it to the schools. It's trying to put a cap on taking money out of the general fund and giving people taxes who can well afford to give money to their schools. So that would be my first thing, but I was trying to say that in the opening statement, is that it's the Republican leadership that doesn't allow bills to get out of committee for Democrats. So I doubt it would ever get in there. But that would be my first bill, to put a cap on the funding of tax breaks for families and corporations.
Okay, thank you. Reports over the last couple of years have noted Arizona has one of the worst shortages of doctors in the United States. How would you attempt to address this issue as an elected official?
Well, they have a great program down in downtown Phoenix for graduate level studies for residencies in different areas of medicine. So we need the funding to support the universities that give medical education so people would want to live here. The trouble is, because the regular schools are so bad, I don't know if doctors would want to move here because their children wouldn't get a very good education. That's just the way it is. That's why I'm running. It's
Okay.
on the education issue.
Thank you. In the event of a budget shortfall, what is your philosophy and approach?
Well, right now there is a surplus and they're not using it for schools. My philosophy is that $74% of corporations pay $50 in state tax. 74%. This was in 2012. So they're not paying their fair share. They're using the fire service, the police force, the schools, but they're not paying because there are so many tax breaks that the Republicans have put through that they have lawyers and lobbyists to influence the Republicans, and so there's not enough money coming into the general fund to pay for the rest of the services that us taxpayers use. So that's what I would do, is cut the taxes that are given to corporations.
Okay. When was the last time that you read the Arizona Constitution, and what is your favorite article or amendment?
Oh, that's a good question that I don't have an answer for. Sorry.
Okay. So you mentioned lobbyists. How will you know which lobbyists to trust?
Well, I would probably trust the ones that work with the unions because they have the interest of the working class in mind, and they are specializing in those laws that are made to protect the working class.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
As heroin and prescription drug overdoses continue to escalate in Arizona, what steps would you take legislatively to help combat the ongoing opioid epidemic?
Well, I support not only medical marijuana, but the use of marijuana. I have been a user of medical marijuana for 2 years, and I used opiate drugs for many years because I have chronic pain, and I wished I would have stopped them much sooner. Opioid drugs will go into the alveolar spaces of the lungs and start causing them to non-function, and that's why people overdose on opioids, is because they stop breathing. The people who are financing the opposition to Proposition 205 for marijuana are opioid manufacturers out of Chandler. So I am a great proponent of marijuana because it's an herb and it doesn't kill you like alcohol can, but opioids definitely do. And I'm so grateful I was able to get medical marijuana.
Okay. What is your position on recently signed legislation that makes it more difficult for voter outreach groups to collect and drop off early ballots in Arizona?
Well, I think it was a good program. I think there are a lot of voters who cannot walk. Maybe they're not early ballot voters, but I am supportive of a program where people can pick up ballots and drop them at a polling place.
Okay, thank you. What's your position regarding the federal government assigning control of Arizona's federal public lands to the state?
I'm not sure that's such a good idea. I don't have much faith in the state right now as far as their management of public lands. I think that the federal government has been doing a fine case, and that's why they make parks, national parks, and I think they do an adequate job.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
A few more questions, and if we have any more from the audience, we still have a few more minutes to take audience questions. So immigration, what are your thoughts on U.S. further restricting immigration?
Well, I feel very strongly about that. With a GDP of $1.3 trillion, Mexico is the second largest economy in Latin America and the 15th worldwide. I don't think Governor Ducey is wanting to curtail access across the border of products and labor. Many manufactured goods are assembled together by U.S. and Mexican firms in a shared production system. One restaurant owner claimed he needed employees to fill the jobs of waiters, bartenders, cooks, busboys, and he would not want immigration curtailed. He has trouble finding employees now. I support comprehensive immigration reform and a pathway to citizenship. 16% of immigrants open businesses. 15% of our workforce is Latin, and the trend is that they will be the new leaders in the state in time. Most of those studying in graduate programs in this country come from foreign countries. If we cut off immigration, we set up a bad precedent for not only our state, but for the whole country.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
How will you address the needs of the seniors in LD21 as their representative?
Well, that's a very good question because I have done a lot of door-to-door walking and meeting seniors, and their big issue is the increasing cost of HOA fees, recreation fees, utility fees, and they're on a limited income. I can only say I live with them. I am a senior. I am on a limited income, so I would represent them better than anybody else, is my feeling.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
What is your position on requiring police officers to wear body cams?
I think that's an excellent idea. Body cams were used in Rialto, California for a year. And after that, complaints against the police dropped by 88%. So trust is being restored in a community when people can see what the police officers are doing.
Okay, thank you. And final question. Given the current electoral environment and voters' seeming lack of trust in their elected officials, what actions do you think elected officials can or should take to gain and maintain voter trust?
Well, it's a very good question. That's why I'm running with Clean Elections. There's no money influencing me. I love this program. I can be honest and authentic. I'm not trying to win anybody's vote. I'm not win their vote, but influence measures because people have given me money. People don't trust the Corporation Commission. There's just a lot of anger out there. So I'm just doing my best to represent the people of Sun City and all of District 21, and because I'm an honest person and I'm a hardworking person.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So Ms. Rasmussen-Lacotta, thank you for entertaining all of these variety of questions from our audience. Please share your closing remarks now.
Okay. If you unite with my beliefs that government is there to serve the citizens, then vote for me. The trickle-down theory does not benefit working people. Republicans would have you believe that it's the best economic policy, but it is not in your best interest. If you believe you want someone who's worked all their life who can represent the working class and their kids, then vote for me. Tax credits and cuts for wealthy individual families and corporations should be eliminated to recover money to the general fund to provide services to the population who pays taxes. If you want a wise grandmother bear who can get things done, vote for me and only for me for District 21. Dark money is influencing candidates now and will in the future because the Arizona legislature has passed a bill 1516. Thank you for your time and attention. I also want to thank all those who have helped me with this campaign, for without them, we could not have survived this challenging process. I invite you to ask me about any of the information I mentioned earlier.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Ms. Rasmussen-Lacotta, we thank you so much for participating in our forum today.
Thank you.
And to our audience members, we thank all of you who took the time to come and inform yourselves before voting. We encourage you to visit www.azcleanelections.gov, where you can find information on the upcoming elections, download the Clean Elections app, and learn about the candidates running for office. A link to the video of this debate, as well as other Clean Elections debates, will be posted on that site within 72 hours of a scheduled event. Please fill out the evaluation form you received as you entered and return it to one of our volunteers. Your feedback is important to the Commission and will help us to improve future debates. Thank you all for coming tonight. You are welcome to stay and speak directly with our candidate. Have a good night.